here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we'd love a special guest this week. It's going to be the turn of the singer, producer and songwriter Barry Blue, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Wrote a huge amount of hits, including Dancin on a Saturday Night, Do You Wanna Dance? And also has produced lots of hit songs for other people as well, including Heatwave, etc, etc. So you're going to find out more about Barry in this fascinating interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. Barry, it's over to you.
Believe it or not, I was the bass player in the band which became Uriah Heep. Which was amazing. So that was when I was 16. I had 3 jobs. I had a job in the morning, which was taking the papers round and doing a paper round. I had a job at lunchtime in Lord John in Carnaby Street. And in the evening, I was playing in a band, playing bass in a band called Spice. And Spice was the forerunner of the band Uriah Heep. So
Right.
it's I was working with all the original members of Uriah Heep. And I left because I managed to get a job working for the Bee Gees, which was my real start to be excited about the music business. I was working in their publishing division, and I worked with them quite fiercely for 2 years. So I was a runner, and I used to take all their demos down to the BBC and all the radio stations and say, this is a new band called Bee Gees. They've just released this single, Mining Disaster, and
The mining
stuff
disaster,
like that.
yes, absolutely.
And that was my first kind of main job, really. So I've been in the business a long time.
Did you, at that point, because you would have been the perfect age to sort of experience the sort of, I suppose, the counterculture and the hippie movement and that sort of political as well as cultural shift, was that something that you were particularly interested and keen on at that stage? Were you into the Carnaby Street kind of vibe?
Oh, definitely. When I was working in the shop in Lord John, we used to get all the bands coming in from the Small Faces, the Trogs, the Kinks. They used to come in for their clothes. So I used to say, oh, Barry, yeah, it's good to meet you. I want to get a suit, it's got to be lame, it's got to be glitter, and I want it in purple because we've got a TV show. And I kind of was always in that culture of the glam rock era.
Yes.
And eventually, when I started singing, my first manager was Gary Glitter's manager, Mike Leander. So, I've always kind of been surrounded by very sort of intelligent, upfront people in the music business, which has always been a bit of a lucky streak for me. So I kind of was surrounded by the music business from a very young age.
Yes. And were your parents, did they have much influence on your life at that sort of early formative years? Obviously they gave you a bass, or you must have...
Well, my father passed away when I was 3 years old, so I didn't know him. But he was a drummer in a band that used to play at a place called the Café de Paris. And that was in London's Piccadilly Circus. And it was the time during the war when it got bombed. If you look it up, and he kind of escaped with his life in the 40s, but unfortunately died at 1953. But he was a drummer, and maybe that was something, that was one of the reasons why I went in the music business. But the other reason was my sister married a songwriter called Ron Roker, and he was playing at the Two Eyes. So I used to go down the Two Eyes with my sister. She used to sneak me in the back door, and I was watching Cliff Richard, and I was watching The Shadows and Vince Eager, and all these early 60s outfits from like the year when I was 8, 9 and 10.
Yes.
So Marty Wilde, who I still see, funny enough, was also playing down there. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So did you, when you got to 16 then, did you leave school at that stage? Or...
I left school at 16, although they wished I left earlier.
Right.
but at 16, that was when I had the gig at Granada TV in the band, in the house band, and we did Lift Off with Aisha and all these programs. And my first gig was I had a school band, and we won a talent competition. Stubby K's Silver Star Show it was, and it was also at Granada. So every Thursday I used to bunk off school and go up with the band, and we used to have to do a pre-record, come back, and on the Fridays we used to get told to come into the headmaster's office. We saw you on TV, because it was always just after the school's programs.
Right.
So 5 o'clock we used to get this call. It was it. My school years were very formative. I mean, I was playing more in bands than I was at school.
Right. And did the bass guitar, did that come sort of quite easily to you at this stage?
Yeah. I mean, I've always played bass on all my records, and most of the songs that I've produced over the years. I've always played bass,
Yes.
bass and guitar. Yeah. Yeah.
And did you sort of get into those other clubs like UFO and go and see Pink Floyd, or I don't know, go to the 14-hour Technicolor Dream in 1967 at the Ali Pali? And
Well, Spice used to play at Marquee a lot, so we did a lot of gigs at Marquee. We supported, let me think, Spencer Davis, The Who, The Move, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, lots of bands. Yeah.
yes, God, you were right there at that time.
I was. Yeah, I did a lot of gigs at the Marquee.
And did it seem at that point when, the 60s had such an optimistic period between, I don't know, 66 to 68, and then, Brian Jones died, and then you had that death of Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, I don't know, Altamont, Charles Manson, things felt, and then the Beatles broke up. Did it feel a little bit like, was that what they were saying, pop music was never going to last, or did that?
Well, yeah, I mean, the late 60s to me was the acme of music. It was a fantastic period, even though we had things like the Vietnam War and stuff like that going on. We felt that, that was the peak of glam, if you like, of the music business. As you go forward, and when you start to get into punk in the late 70s, that's kind of when I decided, that's really not for me. I'm going to try and do something else, which is when I started producing.
Yes.
I produced all my hits in the 70s, but then I sort of started to produce other people like Heatwave and more funk and soul records.
Yes, that was quite an amazing transformation. But the early 70s then, did you just have a gift for songwriting and what made a good melody and what made a good lyric and what made a good chorus? Was that something that just seemed to sort of come naturally?
Well, as I say, my sister married Ron Roker, who was a good writer. And then I met up with Lindsay DePaul, who you may or may not remember.
Yes, very well, yes.
She was my co-writer for many, many years. And we were signed to a company called ATV Kirshner, which was Don Kirshner's. Don Kirshner was from the States, obviously, and he put the Monkees together and the Archies and all these kind of, makeup bands, but they made great records. And he worked out of the Brill Building, along with the major writers like Neil Sedaka and Neil Diamond and Goffin and King. And he wanted to try and do the same thing in the UK. So Lindsay DePaul and myself were the first writers to sign to ATV Kirshner, and we kind of worked in the same way that the Brill Building writers worked, where we went in at 9:30 in the morning and we came out at 5:30. And at the end of the week, we had to provide the publishers with 3 or 4 songs that we'd written in that week, and then they would critique them.
Right.
So it was kind of a business. It was like, I'm going to work now, I'm going to do some writing. So, and we did that, and we wrote lots of good songs. Not a lot of them got recorded. So in the end, Lindsay decided that we did a demo of a song called Sugar Me.
Yes.
And we sent it around to a few artists, and they came back and said, it's not quite for us. It's a little bit weird, a little bit left of center. So Lindsay said to me, you know what? I'm going to put this record out myself, this song, because I really love it. And I said, yeah, I love it too. And we can't get an artist on it. So she put it out on a label called MAM, and it became a massive hit all around the world.
That was it. That
then,
kind of made it
yeah.
look.
And
So
then
how did you meet Lindsay DePaul then? How did that relationship?
she was at an art school. She was a great cartoonist, actually. She used to write lots of cartoons, and we just met up at I think it was someone's party, and we talked about. She was a piano player, I was a guitar player, and we said, you know what, we should get together and maybe do a little bit of writing, and that's how it started. We ended up being, good soulmates, good writers, and good friends up until when she passed. Yeah.
Yeah, so God, that's amazing when things like that sort of happen. You must look back and think, how extraordinary. The stars
Well,
lined up.
I've had an extraordinary career, I think. Yeah.
Yes. And can you remember how that song sort of, because when you pull it apart and you think, because I often think, I wonder why that song is just so memorable. That can be any type of genre, whether it's heavy metal, pop, or reggae. Do you ever sort of think, what is it that makes that lyric or that chord progression?
That particular song, Sugar Me, it was started on my bass line, which was boom, 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 boom. And then Lindsay went dun dun on the piano, dun dun. And if you listen to the record, that's all that starts the record. It's just this kind of bass part. And it's a little bit dramatic and a little bit sort of odd. It wasn't like anything else that was about.
Yes.
And then we put a gypsy violin as the solo, and people thought, well, that's weird. And it just caught on. And in my productions after that, I always thought that, what makes a song hit with the listener is if you start with something that they don't recognize until it's a hit. So with Dancing on a Saturday Night, it started off with a bouzouki.
Yes.
And who had put a bouzouki on a pop song? No one else. So that's what I did. And then when Heatwave came out, which was 5-6 years later, it starts with a harp. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
Starts with a harp. You don't do that on a funk and soul record.
No.
But we did. And everyone said, take it off. It doesn't work because it's a soul record and it's not going to happen. And of course we didn't. We just decided to stay with it and keep it. And I think that was the right decision because it was so unique. Soon as the first 5 seconds of Dancing on a Saturday Night and Boogie Nights, you know exactly what the records are. You know exactly what they are, which is powerful.
Yes, well, yes, I know. It's just I must keep you up at night trying to think of that original moment. That yes, that line. So then, did you then sign to Bell Records as a solo artist?
I signed to Decca Records as Barry Green, which is my real name, in 1970.
Right.
And I put out 3 records under the name of Barry Green. One of them was from a TV show which died a death called Alexander the Greatest. The second record was called Papa Do, which was a sort of semi-hit in France. And then the third record, which I can't even remember now, that's when they decided, we don't think this is working, Barry, so let's call it quits. So I took a step back and I thought, well, this isn't working. And then someone at a party said to me, you know what, why don't you change your name? Because green is not a lucky colour in the music business and in the circus. This guy was a juggler in the circus.
Right.
I was talking to, and he says to me, I'm in the circus. We never wear green, and we never, green is associated with a colour that, is not a lucky colour. So I thought, okay, well, look, let's try a different name. So I had this song with Lindsay called Dancing on a Saturday Night. We did the same thing. We tried to get it recorded by other people, and no one wanted to record it. So I said, all right, well, I'll do it myself, which is what I did. And then I changed my name to Barry Blue. Bell Records heard the demo. They loved it and said, "Can we release it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Let's see what happens." And that's when I started becoming a pop singer. Yeah.
Blimey, that's amazing. Yes, I think there was, is it Simon Fisher Turner? I think he was around at that same time. He was a child actor and was going to be the new David Cassidy, I think,
Yes.
at that stage. But I don't
Yeah.
know. He didn't actually enjoy that and went on to, I don't know, doing other artistic things rather than being a face and a
Well,
cute.
I ended up after 5 singles, which was successful. I had 5 hits. I thought, do I want to do this tour around the world? And I thought, I'm much happier being behind not being behind. I'm being behind the camera instead of front of it.
Yes.
So that's when I decided to kind of move my career slightly, stick to songwriting and producing rather than being an artist.
Yes.
And that's lasted all the way through till kind of lately, really. I mean, that in the 20s or the noughties, as we call them, I put out an album of 50 years of Barry Blue and a couple of other things, and they've done quite well. So I'm actually starting to make a new record now.
Yes, this is quite.
I might tour with it. Who knows?
Have you heard many people's cover version of "Do You Want to Dance"? Have you sort of gone through and sort of listened to, all the different variations of that track?
Um,
No.
there's 50 odd versions of Saturday Night. I know Tony Basil did a version of Do You Want to Dance? But I don't really know who's cut a lot of my songs. I've got to be honest with you. It's sometimes you look down and you say, oh, this guy's cut this tune in Japan and that one's cut this tune in France, etc., etc. So it's wonderful when someone cuts your song. I must say it's a privilege to be a songwriter and to have someone cut your song. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way anymore. The days of the songwriter writing a song for an artist are gone, which is very sad because the artists tend to write their own songs and they bring in someone to write the top line and then they bring in someone to write the beats. And so you get songs now that are written by 6 people,
Yes, it's designed by committee.
Yeah, it's writing by committee.
Yes.
I've never written like that. I either write with one person or I write a song on my own.
Yes, I think David Bowie said, and I don't know if he just said it for effect, but he wanted to be a writer and other people record it, but then he couldn't find anybody, so then he developed his persona and character.
That's right, and he did it big time. Yeah,
and he sort of enjoyed it, obviously, because he kept doing it. But yes, it's kind of interesting. And you did some major tours though, didn't you, with people as a sort of
as an artist? Yeah, I toured. I did lots. I wouldn't say I toured with them, but I did lots of gigs where there were other very big acts like Queen, like ABBA. Most of the 70s acts I worked with Slade and Sweet. And we were always kind of on the TVs all around the world, working together. Queen, when I first saw Queen, I think it was when they had a single out called Seven Seas Fry.
Yes, I remember him.
Yeah, and I was on a Dutch TV show, and they were. I think they were funny enough. They were below me on the bill because I had Saturday Night was a big hit in Holland. And I thought, well, this band is so good. They are so good. So it's all very formative. But it's all added to my kind of career, really, and my storyline.
Yes. And were you, I mean, at that stage, in America, we had Laurel Canyon, and there was like, that kind of singer-songwriter. There was glam rock, there was prog rock. Did you sort of, at that point as an artist, were you quite influenced by other things going on, or were you quite good at sort of keeping focused on what you were?
Oh, no. I mean, when I got to my 5th record in the UK with Bell, and I thought, I don't want to do this pop thing anymore, not really. And I was very, very influenced by the sounds of Philadelphia and Barry White. Barry White used to work with a great string arranger called Gene Page, who you probably aren't aware of, but all the early Barry White records had these most incredible string arrangements. And so I contacted Gene Page and I said, could you work on a couple of songs of mine? And I went over to LA, spent loads of money, I must say. And we put out a couple of records. But obviously, because I was a pop glam singer, people went, well, what's this? He's gone kind of soulful. But out of that came a song called Devil's Gun, which was a massive hit in the States, a #1 hit in the States for another act that heard my version. And then they recorded it. A band called CJ and Co. They had a very big hit with it. So kind of in a roundabout way, it became successful, even though it wasn't with my versions. It was with other versions of the songs
Yes.
I did with Gene Page.
God, we love that Philadelphia song.
I love it, yeah.
Yes. I mean, it was always, I suppose at that stage, obviously I was quite a young person, but that Top of the Pops and listen to the Sunday charts in the evening, afternoon, and the excitement, because music, singles would move very slowly, wouldn't they? They'd go up 3 places, 5 places.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah,
it's in the top 20. It might be on Top of the Pops, and you have to watch Top of the Pops. And then, it was a very long process. Things didn't just go in the charts at #1 and then disappear. It was just like, oh, it's climbing. So I think that's why we sort of remember so many of those songs from that period, because they were in our consciousness and on the school.
That's right.
The school bus. And
I don't think that happens now, does it?
No,
records seem to fly into the chart for the first week, and then they've disappeared. Because you haven't got the kind of TV shows like we used to have, as you say, Top of the Pops and whatever, the ones with Paula Yates and
was there one called Supersonic where the person
yes, that's right, Supersonic. That was Mike Mansfield.
Cute.
Yes, I was on that show as well.
Blimey, that was
so you had all those Saturday morning shows as well.
Yes,
and you could promote your records on all these shows. So it gave them longevity, which you don't have now, because I don't know, I don't see any pop programs anymore except for Jules Holland, which is kind of more niche,
Yes.
So you don't really have a program for kind of a pop act as such.
Well, I suppose it was like the old grey whistle test for the serious musos.
Yeah, serious musos.
I was sent to bed before that appeared. So
I think Jules Holland's taken over from that kind of niche.
Yes,
Songwriter, singer-songwriter thing.
So then, sort of the mid-70s, you started obviously focusing on writing for other people. So with Brotherhood of Man, was that a song that they'd heard of yours, or did they say, could you write something for us?
Brotherhood of Man, I'd worked with a lot, and in fact, the song that I'd written for them was a massive hit in Europe right before their Eurovision song.
Right.
Save Your Kisses for Me. The song I wrote was called Kiss Me, Kiss Your Baby.
Yes.
#1, probably all the way across Europe. So consequently, when Eurovision came out, although not a lot of people know it in the UK, Brotherhood of Man were quite a big act in Europe. So they got plenty of votes from Europe on Save Your Kisses for Me. And the producer and the writer, or the co-writer of Save Your Kisses for Me, was the producer of Kiss Me, Kiss Your Baby with me.
Right.
So the whole thing kind of, was a cycle, and it helped their career. They went on to have a lot of hits,
Oh, God, they're huge. I mean, there was that whole period of bands like Brotherhood of Man, Peters and Lee, which we all got very excited about. I mean, there was just, Top of the Pops used to be so random, didn't they? They could have a heavy metal band with Telly Savalas. It was just...
That's right, yeah. Well, they just a microcosm of what was happening in the charts. So if Telly Savalas was #1, he'd be on Top of the Pops along with ABBA or whoever,
or Benny Hill.
Or Benny Hill, exactly. But you don't get that anymore.
No, it was good. Well, so then disco. I mean, you had Philadelphia Soul. Was that something that you just absolutely loved, disco, when it started to appear?
I loved the old Stax records, and I loved the records out on Atlantic Stax. But basically R&B soul, Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, those kind of artists were the artists I loved. So I tried in my productions to kind of, I wouldn't say, I would say it was kind of a mirror image of what they were doing in the States, is what I tried to do in the UK. So I worked with a lot of UK funk and soul acts like Beggar and Co. and I think Ricotto.
Was it The Real
Obviously
Thing?
Heatwave.
I can't. There was a Liverpool funk band, wasn't there? Was that called? I can't remember.
Real Thing.
Yes, The Real Thing. That's the one. Yes.
Yeah, I knew them quite well. In fact, we worked together, but I didn't pursue that because I had to go to the States to write something else. So, yeah, I mean, very, very varied career I've had, and I'm thankful for that.
So was you, because obviously, I mean, I definitely wasn't there, but Studio 54, the opening song was Devil's Gun, wasn't it? Was that?
Right. That's right. And that was the song that I went over to the States and recorded for my own album, which actually ended up being a B-side. And it was picked up by this band, as I say, CJ and Co. And their producers, who were very famous at the time, Mike Coffey. And it became the first song that was ever played at Studio 54.
Blimey.
And that's why it was a big, massive dance record in America for years. And it got used where, you get these university bands that play, like the Mississippi University Band and Chicago, and it became a theme song. And the lyric then, which I'm quite proud of, I think the lyric is a really good lyric. It kind of sums up, if you listen to it, what's happening today. It's a really good lyric, fee, fi, fo, fum, we're looking down the barrel of the devil's gun. And it's going on about, if we don't change our ways with the wars, with climate change, with this and that, we're doomed. But I wrote that in 1974.
Right.
So maybe
You had a political consciousness there.
definite.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, as the sort of, obviously the disco period and Saturday Night Fever, I mean, that must have just been a great inspiration. Were you still based in the UK at that stage, or did you ever?
I was going backwards and forwards to LA. In fact, I produced a single with a girl called, what was her name? Lynn Gorney. She was, you'll have to look it up, because I can't remember everything I've ever written. But John Travolta was the star. Karen Lynn Gorney, that was it. Karen Lynn Gorney was the co-star in Saturday Night Fever.
Right.
On in the film, and I produced a couple of records with her. So I was well involved with this whole Saturday Night Fever thing. Yeah.
My God, that must have been extraordinary at that stage. Did you understand enough about the music industry to do with ownership and publishing? And
No. Unfortunately, if I knew what I know now, I would have been even more successful. But in those days, we're in the days of 50-50 copyrights for life with the publisher. Now that doesn't happen. Now the writer retains more rights than the publisher. In those days, the publisher certainly retained more rights than the writer. That's why you always see, even today, the writer credit is well below the artist and the label and the producer credit. And in my career, I've worked for the PRS, which you may have heard of.
yes,
I've been a director. I was a director there for 12 years, and I'm trying to rebalance the whole situation so that the writers have a larger share of what they've created, and that's a good thing for nowadays. It wasn't a good thing when I was growing up in the music business.
crikey, yes.
I've learned by my mistakes in that area.
Yes. And how did your relationship with Heatwave, how did that sort of materialise?
I'd seen the band actually in a club in Victoria. In fact, I was going past this club in Victoria. I can't remember the name of it. And I saw this line of people outside. I thought, what the hell are they're queuing up for? So I joined the queue, or the line, as they say in the States. And I got in, I saw this band called Chicago Heatwave. And It was a multiracial band. It was a band consisting of 3 black guys from the States who were based in Germany as GIs, a Czechoslovakian immigrant drummer who shouldn't have been here. He didn't have a passport. A bass player from Switzerland and a guitarist from New Zealand. And of course, the great Rod Temperton, who was the keyboard player. And I was mesmerized by this band. I mean, visually, they were a bit like Earth, Wind and Fire. They moved, they did all this aerobics like Cirque du Soleil. And then you had these great songs that Rod Temperton had written for this band. And I thought, my goodness, this band is just sensational. So I went backstage, and I was quite a big producer at the time. I said to the guys, you know what, I love your music. I think you're writing some great songs, Rod. I'd like to work with you. And we chatted and we talked, and he said, well, I'm going back to Germany because that's where he used to live. I'm going back to Germany tomorrow, so maybe we'll catch up when I come back. What I decided to do was a week later to go to Germany, sit down with him, listen to him writing some songs. And he was writing Always and Forever and Boogie Nights. And he started a few other songs. And I thought, this guy's going to be a killer songwriter. He's going to be a massive songwriter. And I said, look, I'm going to try and get you a deal in the UK, which we did. We got him a deal with a fledgling company called GTO Records. The MD of that was the guy that ran Bell Records. So I'm a friend of him. And I said, you got to listen to this band, Heatwave. They're sensational. And we ended up doing their first album together. And the third single was Boogie Nights off of it, which was massive. God.
It's so infectious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just an amazing song, really. And how did you, I mean, each decade has a sort of a certain vibe or certain quality. I mean, there's sort of, as the 70s finished, 79, Thatcher gets in, then we have, the Conservatives for that 10 years, but then we have the Falkland War, there's the miners' crisis, there's Greenham Common. The 80s is quite, it's like an odd decade. There's some people having a great time, there's a lot of unemployment.
Yeah.
There was a lot of kind of grief. The IRA was sort of still quite prevalent at that stage. How did you sort of cope with that? Right, this is the 80s after being there since the 60s.
Well, in the 80s, I decided to have my own recording studio, which was actually supposed to be a studio for myself and not for outside artists. And it was in Camden Town, which is a kind of really vibey part of London. The Roundhouse was next door to me. And the Roundhouse is where all these bands used to perform. Bowie performed there. And a lot of the early 80s bands, Depeche Mode,
yes,
Sinead O'Connor, you name it, you name an 80s band, they performed at the Roundhouse. My studio was next door. So I used to get people coming in and saying, can we record a demo at your studio? I said, well, yeah, it's really for me, but sure. So we ended up doing the first couple of Sinead O'Connor albums. We did Depeche Mode albums. We did albums for Bronski Beat. And it became a sort of a big studio. So I ended up spending most of the 80s working as a studio owner rather than working as a producer. I produced a few records and I worked with Five Star. And I had my own little band that I'd put together called Toto Coelho. And we had a hit with I Eat Cannibals, which is a fun record. So I kind of combined the 80s with being a studio owner, a songwriter, and it kind of worked. I wasn't terribly keen on the 80s as musically, but I kind of got through it because I worked with so many different bands.
Yes. I mean, the technology and production sounds changed a lot. There was that sort of Trevor Horn vibe. Right. Did that, like there was ABC Frankie, and then there was that, we had that sort of, I thought, was it Robin Miller who'd had Sade? So we had that slight jazz funk.
Yeah,
pop.
That's right. In fact, I saw Robin Miller last week. We talked about the early days. Because Sade was one of my favourite acts, and Robin owned a studio. I was one studio owner, And Robin Miller was the other studio owner. He had Morgan Studios, which was in Willesden in London. And I had the studio in Camden. So I used to go down to his studio and listen to the acts he was working with, one of them being Sade.
Right.
I said, I wish I'd have had Sade. I loved her music.
Yes, I know. It was quite something.
And there you
wasn't it?
are. So, yeah, I was connected with everyone. Everyone was
Yes.
connected very, it was very sort of creative in those days. And now it's more like a business. It was a business obviously then, but now the business is run by businessmen and not by creatives as such, which I think is a
Yes.
big change.
Yes, well, it was probably a bit more random, wasn't it? There was a lot more sort of decisions made when people were not always completely on the same planet, were they? It was quite interesting. There was, and how did you sort of bump into Five Star? Because it was one of those bands who, again, they were huge at that time, weren't they? In the sort of mid-80s.
They were. It was just a bit of luck, really. Again, their producer, can't remember his name, came into my studio, and I was doing the demo of All Four Down, and I was writing it for another act, and they heard it. They'd put out 3 or 4 records before All Four Down became their first hit,
Yes.
and they said, "Can we record that?" And I said, "Well, I was going to give it to another act, but you can try it and see how it comes out. I don't mind." And then they played me that finished record. I didn't produce that. I was nothing to do with it. I just was a co-writer on it. And I thought, oh God, this is good. And the band were like a UK version of Jackson 5, really.
Yeah.
And they were really good. So, it became their first hit.
That's right. It was Nick. Is it Martinelli?
Nick Martinelli, that's it. Yeah.
Yes.
That.
Does the producer have a massive influence on the final sound of a record?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one thing that hasn't changed so much. That the right producer with the right act can go on to do massive things. You've got, Taylor Swift only works with 2 or 3 producers, Max Martin, and then, the guy who's working with them now.
Yes.
It's called. You'll find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the producer is paramount to making the right record.
Yes. Are you good at dealing with dynamics, group, individual dynamics, group dynamics, sort of dealing with anything that comes your way?
Oh, I thought I was one of the best producers in that area. I used to know the strengths of musicians and the weaknesses of musicians and how they're feeling and how they're, whether they've given it all in the song, whether they've got problems at home, problems with the management of the record company. It all comes out in the studio.
Yes,
you
I can
end up
imagine.
becoming like an advisor, a psychoanalyst, a therapist, because they want to get their emotions out in the studio, in the song that they're singing at the time, and you end up becoming kind of you do become their kind of other half.
Yes. Is it kind of like band therapy at times?
It is therapy,
I always think some bands could have just done with band therapy, really. Could have just, just to say, come on, guys, you don't know what you got and you could blow this.
You have to sit down and think to yourself when things are not going right. Right, now, how can I change this around without upsetting the bass player or making the singer feel like he or she isn't singing the right key, or the drummer is not tight enough, or is falling out of time, but that's all changed because everyone uses computers now, or they use Suno, or to make AI records. It's
right. Yeah, it's a shame, really, because there's been quite a few people who I spoke to, both the drummer and the producer, about that relationship where it goes badly because there was the click track, and sometimes it's like, this record isn't going to work. The drummer just isn't good enough. Did you ever have that experience yourself, thinking?
Oh, many times we had experiences where we thought, this isn't working. We need to bring in someone else to kind of patch it up. But I tried to always work with the act. And if the drummer was, not on the beat, I would used to kind of work with him separately and make sure that we got that side of it right. The same with any of the musicians. I was a stickler for making sure things sounded right. So when I go back to listen to some of my old records, there's very few that I can say, oh, I could have done that better.
Right.
Which is good, because it's good to have that feeling that, there's certain records where what's that record? There's a couple of records that I still hear where the sax player is out of tune, or the piano player is behind the beat, and I'm thinking, why didn't the producer pick up on that? The overall record becomes a hit, and so you put that to one side, but that would really irk me.
Yes.
If I heard that,
It would be very frustrating. So that was the kind of the 80s. Then the 90s come, and there's another wave of, I find that every 3 to 5 years there's another wave, another chapter, especially I suppose on pop music or rock. There's like a new bunch of people coming along. The bands that have been there for that period of time are often struggling on their third or fourth album. Dynamics aren't particularly happening, and things start to shift. And then you can see the artist and thinking, I'm not quite sure where we fit into this. And so, how did you navigate your 90s? What was that like?
What I did in my 90s? I decided that I'm going to steer away from writing for artists. I mean, I wrote still songs for artists, but I ended up deciding not to produce anyone for a while because I was kind of burnt out. I'd spent the 70s working with maybe 7 or 8 acts at once. I started to work with the Jacksons in 78, 79. And I was working on an album called Destiny, and I was completely burnt out. And Joe Jackson was obviously their manager, as you've seen if you've seen the movie.
Yes.
And he was exactly as he is depicted in the movie. And this guy was on my shoulder, and for 9 months he was going to be on my shoulder. I said, you know what? I don't need this anymore. I can't do this. It's not the finances of it. It's just I have to work on my own. So I decided to form a company whereby I was writing music for film and TV. So I could go into my own studio, lay down some tracks, get them used in films and musicals and TV shows. And that's what I did mainly throughout the 90s. And it's my kind of part of my career that no one really knows about because I used to write under different pseudonyms. But funny enough, it was one of my most successful periods of my life.
Yes.
A lot of my music was used when Sky started, Sky TV, they used all my music. When MTV started, they used a lot of my music. So, it was very good therapy for me. It was good creatively because I didn't have to answer to anyone. And I built up, a successful company.
My God, you did write a lot, didn't you? But you actually, just at the late 80s, you worked with, was it Rod Templeton again, didn't you, on an album, Kiss of Life?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, we connected again. We'd always been mates. We'd always been friends. Whenever he was in London, we used to go out and have a drink and a chat and stuff. But he called me up once and said, I think it was early 90s, wasn't he? Saida Garrett?
Yes.
Kiss of Life. He said, I've got this, I'm doing this album with Saida Garrett, and she wrote Man in the Mirror for Michael's Thriller album. So she'd been very successful as a songwriter. He said, I'm just looking for the title song, and I can't work out what, I said, well, Rod, you must have something. One of the biggest songwriters in the world. He said, I just haven't got the title. So can you write something? So I wrote this song called Kiss of Life, and it became the title track of her album.
Yes.
So we connected again, yeah.
What happened to her after that? Did she continue on after that?
No, I think she's written a few other things, and she's, she was a great singer, successful singer and songwriter, but she never had the commercial success as an artist.
I have to say, there's like 1 billion musicians on that album, isn't it? That must be.
There is.
there must be a lot of money thrown on that one.
Oh, for sure. Well, Rod went on to do all the Quincy Jones albums, so he worked with the very finest musicians in the world. And when we were doing the third Heatwave album, although Rod was working with Quincy, he would say, let's use Herbie Hancock to do this solo, or let's use Greg Fillinganes or John Robinson, who was a fantastic drummer. So we worked with great musicians, and thank goodness I worked with these musicians right through my career.
Yes, God, that must be amazing to see such artistry at close up, really, and think, God, that is genius, isn't it? What makes yes, it's this amazing. I just saw your list of TV and film. It's quite incredible, isn't it? You did sort of, even though obviously you're more behind scenes, but TV themes and film theme songs. It's quite extraordinary. Anything from Billy Liar to Side by Side, Borg v. McEnroe, Sex in the City. I mean, that's just an incredible amount.
It's just the way it's turned out. I mean, as I said, I've written a lot of music for film and TV, but sometimes some of these themes I'd written or pieces of music ended up in very big TV shows. There's a couple of pieces of my music in Breaking Bad, which I didn't even know until I listened to the soundtrack. People pick it up and say, "Oh, I like that. That's we can use that." So it's an interesting business that I'm in. But to me, it's not a business; it's a hobby. And thank goodness, in my career, my hobby has been my business, and my business has been fairly successful.
Well, nice. Yeah, absolutely. That's quite amazing. But then, so you were just saying at the beginning, was the first record that you released recently, is this the one from 2020, which is Songs from the Heart Book?
Yeah.
So that was that something that you started working on, I don't know, 2015, 16?
It was all the songs that I'd written prior to that, which I felt didn't get the lifespan they should have. I.e., there were songs that I'd written for other people that either were not recorded in the way that I would have recorded them, or sung in the way that I would have sung them, or that never got recorded at all. So I decided to do this album called Songs from the Heart Book, which are the songs that I've loved of mine, and if you can love your own songs, that never saw the light of day. Now, being an artist that was from the 70s to record something in 2020 when you're not performing live is difficult because people don't know who you are. But I did it for me. I did that album for me, and there were some really good songs on there that ended up being recorded by other people, like Escaping, which was a good song which Dina Carroll had recorded.
Oh, yes.
And it was recorded by 6 or 7 other artists around the world. It was a very big hit in most territories. And I decided to record the version that I wanted to record the way I wanted to do it, which is why I did that album. And I'm doing the same thing now, which is going to be my final album before I retire off into the sunset.
Is that Out of the Blue?
No, that was, funny enough, that was part and parcel of Songs from the Heart Book. And then a record company said, well, why can't we combine that album with some of your early songs, plus some of the songs that you've been writing for that have never been seen or heard of, that you never got to record.
Yes.
55-year span of songwriting, I've probably written 2,000 songs or pieces of music. I said, okay, so we'll do a 50-song album. So it's 50 years of Barry Blue.
Yes.
And that's still going, and people are still commenting on how good it is. So I'm delighted with it.
Well, I'm not surprised. We love archiving, actually. I do think it's very important in life, actually. Yeah. So then you were just saying at the beginning, you then sort of, I suppose, post-lockdown, started working on this other project. I'm looking here, actually, on great enthusiasm. Yes. So this is it an opera that you're working on?
It's actually a musical. As I say, it's a French musical. So the French are kind of very very precise in what they want to portray, and it's a musical about a famous Catholic saint. So there are limitations to what you can say or what you can do, and it was all based on historic records of when Bernadette of Lourdes grew up, and the abuse and the heartache and the shame she had to endure because she kept saying that I've seen visions and I don't know what they are of. And this is a true story, obviously, and everyone from the judges, from the townspeople, from her parents said, "Well, who is this person that you're seeing? Is it the Virgin Mary?" And she said, "No, I don't know who it is. It's just the lady in white." And she never actually lied about anything. She was pure, and she always would stick to the truth and say, "I don't know what I've seen, and I don't know why I can heal, but I can." And she used
Right.
to heal people, and it's a fabulous story. And I'm hoping it comes to the UK and goes around the world, because it's beautiful songs and it's a wonderful story. So as I
Yes.
say, that's what I've been working on in the last couple of years. And now I'd like to find one more act, I think, to produce and write for. But it's very difficult to find the right act for me.
Do you
That's,
have a kind of a big catalogue, archival files of sort of songs that are there that you're just working on or worked on for? I just
oh
find
yeah, yeah. I've got songs that I would love to find the right artist for. So I'm always looking for the right artist. So on your radio show, just do a shout out if any artist wants to put themselves forward that are
yes.
unsigned, that want to break. Let me hear them.
Yes. Well, God, that's amazing. Yeah, that's kind of. So, do you use different ways of being, being in that creative process? Do you sort of, I don't know, have different times? Do you, I don't know, dreams? Do you do cut ups? Do you, how do you sort
What,
of
a
function?
title or a song?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
just the way a song develops.
I've always been asked how a song develops, and it's like,
Um,
how do you explain how you write a story in 3 minutes from beginning, the middle, and the end? And I wish I could explain it. It's the same as if you ask an artist or a poet, how does he come up with a work that you admire or you love or you hate? I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, but I'm still writing. I'm writing today, and I've got this idea for a song, and it just came out of the blue, so to speak.
yeah.
I had a title, and the title, I don't know where it came from. It just popped into my head when I was half asleep. And so I'm finishing it, and then, it will go into my little box of songs, which I will hopefully use um, for the right artist when I find the right artist.
God, that's amazing. And do you still have your studio all there?
Well, it's actually now here. I've just moved into a new place, and I'm just putting it together now. It looks a bit of a mess. Yeah, I'm putting it together as we speak, uh,
Right.
to use. Yeah.
Yes. So what other projects have you got lined up for the rest of the year and possibly next year? Is there much on sort of bubbling away?
Oh, there's always something bubbling away. As I say, I'm writing a new album for myself. I'm looking for a good act for a particular project I'm working on. I'm writing some more songs for the musical I mentioned. I keep myself busy. I'm not one to sort of say, right, I'm hanging up my boots. That's it. I'm retiring. I don't retire. I'm not that kind of guy.
No. Well, I guess you're the generation that you still see the Stones and you still see Iggy Pop and you still see
Yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah,
people
yeah.
who are doing their thing, Eric
Yeah.
Clapton. So I don't know what else you're going to do. It's
I
just,
mean, if McCartney at 83 can still cut it, anyone can.
well,
And I,
quite.
I saw his last show, 3 hours. He's on stage doing 40 songs. Guy's magnificent, Guy's a genius. So it gives you the inspiration to carry on.
Yes. Did you watch that documentary of the 8 hour one, the film of them making their last album?
I did.
Uh, that was kind of mesmerising, really.
It was. I haven't seen the one where he found his lost space, which I'm going to look at.
Oh God, that is, yeah. I enjoyed it a lot.
I
You
haven't
know,
seen that yet.
I found it kind of, it was a bit Scooby Doo. You know,
Yeah,
who stole the bass? But you know,
yeah,
it's an amazing story and amazing people. And yes, it is. Yes, Hawkwind appears in it. It's quite interestingly.
yeah.
Um,
I'll look forward to seeing that. So
yeah,
yeah, so we're virtually up to date, right?
we
Yeah,
are.
that's where we're at.
Well, look, thank you ever so much for this. This has been amazing and incredible to hear your life story. Actually, it's just
Great.
fascinating.
So I
But
presume you'll edit the bits that you want.
yes, and yes,
When
and
is
if
it
you,
broadcast?
well, I'm
Or
going to put it out in the next couple of weeks. So if you want me to send you a copy, you're always happy to have one.
yeah, brilliant. Just let me know when it's on and what I can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. But look,
brilliant.
Barry, thank you ever so much. Have a great summer and enjoy the I don't know, the heat.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I am enjoying it. There's no air conditioning in the studio at the moment, which is really a problem. So yeah, I'm not enjoying the heat. But thanks, David. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, take care. Have a lovely evening. Take care.
All the
Bye-bye.
best. Bye
Bye.
bye. Bye.
And that was me in conversation with Barry Blue, talking about his life in music. This has been the C86 show. David Eastaugh. Have a great week. Stay safe.